Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, good day. Also, today we are going to look at the concept of reproduction. So, what is reproduction? Reproduction is a biological process by which new individual organisms are produced. So, when we say reproduction, it is actually a biological processes where new organisms are generated from a particular living organism. So, it ensures the importance of reproduction is to ensure the continuation of species across generations. Because if there is no reproduction, that it means that if new species are not, or if new organisms are not produced through reproduction, it means that the species of that organism will be terminated. And that is why in biology we have what we call speciation and we have extinction. Extinction is actually a process whereby a particular species of living organisms are completely disappeared on Earth. That is what we call extinction. And at the same time, new species of organisms can be produced on Earth. So to ensure the continuation of a species of living organisms on Earth like human, so you need reproduction. And one thing that is very important is that for the maintenance of the species of living organisms, the number of birth is usually require, or it's usually more than the number of deaths. That is, the natality rate is greater than the mortality rate. And there are two types of reproduction, of course. This includes sexual and asexual reproduction. That is the two types of reproduction that we have. And of course, usually the organisms are produced through fertilization, especially in the case of sexual reproduction. And this fertilization can occur in humans and it can also occur in plants. Usually, zygote and egg, they are very important in reproduction, where the organisms itself, it is actually diploid with two ends. And these organisms, of course, releases a sperm, like in humans, with 23 chromosomes. So like, for example, now, this is a zygote. How do we get this zygote? Is when a sperm cell fertilizes egg cell. So egg cell, and we have egg cell plus sperm cell through fertilization, or we have zygote. And then the zygote through mitosis, it will now produce what you call sporophytes. And then sporophyte will develop to sporangia. And this sporangia can release spores. Of course, these are the spores. And the spores can undergo germination to produce at least the plant through germination. So spores can develop into a baby plant through germination. And then this plant will undergo mitosis to produce the complete sporophytes, that is the complete plant. So you see, this is to tell you that egg and sperm cell, they are haploid, that is one end. So egg and sperm will now give a zygote. So the zygote is diploid, that is 2M, and egg and sperm is haploid. So this is how actually organisms developed or produced through reproduction. We need male and female, especially in this diagram, is an indication of how the reproduction takes place in living organism. So then, very importantly, sexual reproduction, it involves a fusion of male and female gametes. That is, in the case of sexual reproduction, you need male and you need female gametes. Like, for example, this is the male where it is releasing sperm, and this is the female where it is releasing the fertilized. So asexual reproduction is when the nucleus of the sperm and the egg cells fused to produce zygotes. And this process creates genetic diversity among offspring. Because actually during asexual reproduction, the fusion of the sperm cell and egg cell that is during meiosis, that is a genetic recombination. And that genetic recombination is associated with genetic diversity that is leading to actually producing organisms from the same species, from the same father, from the same mother, but they are genetically diverse. And it's because of that genetic recombination. So it typically requires complex behaviors and structures for mating and behavior. That is in the case of sexual reproduction. But for asexual reproduction, it occurs without a fusion of gametes and the common methods. So in this case, there is no need for male and female. So they usually reproduce without the fusions of the gamete cells. So examples of this reproduction process include binary fission, budding, and vegetative reproduction. So these are the examples of asexual reproduction. So offsprings are genetically identical to the parent, leading to less genetic diversity. So because the offspring from asexual reproduction, it doesn't share male and female. So usually there is not that much of genetics recombination, and that is why there is a less genetic variation or genetic diversity. So we have different examples or types of this asexual reproduction. We have regeneration, vegetative reproduction, binary fission, sporulation, we have parthenogenesis, and then we have budding. So these are actual reproductive, the different types of asexual reproduction. Like in the case of binary fission, you have a single cell, and the single cell will divide itself to produce a new daughter cell. So it's actually reproduced exactly. So binary fission, one organism divide itself into two, and that's how it reproduces. But in the case of sporulation, the matured organism that releases spores, and the spores will undergo germination to produce the organism itself. And for the budding, of course, they usually develop root in their body, that is the organism, and then the root will be developing, and it will reach a stage where it will disintegrate itself from the main organism. So this is actually the different types of reproduction. So what are the role of gametes in reproduction? So the role of gametes, which is the specialized cells that carry genetics information for reproduction. And these gametes, like for example in human, the gamete cells include sperm and the egg cell. And this is the structure of the sperm cell. So the structure of the sperm cell is divided into three major parts. There is head, middle phase, and then we have cap. And of course, the head comprises of nucleus, acrosome, and acrosomal cap. This is the three major components of the sperm cell. And then for the middle phase, there is centriole, neck, mitochondria, dense fiber, and annulus. So this is actually a component of the middle phase. So for the tail, which is the flagellum that the sperm use to move from one point to another, comprises of axial filament and plasma membrane. And then for the structure of the egg cell, is actually made up of corona, radiata, zona pellucida, vitreline membrane, nucleus, and cytoplasm. So these are the different components of the egg cell. So you see, these are the two specialized cells in humans that are used in fertilization. So in animals, sperm and eggs are the two types of gametes involved. So in plants, they have pollen and ovules, which serve as a gamete that participate in fertilization. So pollen and ovules, they are the two gamete cells that are found in plants. So What is the fertilization process? So fertilization process is actually the union of sperm and egg cell to form a zygote. So you have egg from sperm cell, and egg contain 23 chromosomes. Sperm also contain 23 chromosomes. So they will fuse themselves together. So the nucleus of the sperm cell will now collide with the nucleus of the egg cell through the fission process to develop zygote with 46 chromosomes. And these zygote will undergo embryo, will undergo different developmental stages which subsequently lead to production of embryos still 46 number of chromosomes. So successful fertilization leads to development of new organisms. But in many cases, in many cases, egg and sperm cell may be released, but they might not fertilize. So the fertilization is by chance. It's not certain all the time. So what are the development of offspring? So of course, after fertilization, the zygote undergoes several stages of development. And these several stages of development include, you see here we have oocyst, the egg, and then so the egg already with the, also leaves the egg. So we have after fertilization, then we have zygote. So the zygote will undergo two cell cleavage, and then of course it will further cleave itself to four cell cleavage, and then eight cell cleavage, and then the eight cells will also divide themselves individually to produce a total of 16 to 32 cells, and that is what leads to the production of morula. And then the morula will further develop into early blastocysts and then late blastocysts. So these are the different stages of the offspring after fertilization. So from zygote, there will be production of 2 cells cleavage, 4 cells cleavage, 8 cells cleavage, and then lastly, morula. The morula will develop itself into early blastocysts and then late blastocysts. So these stages can include cleavage. It also can include gastrula or gastrulation, which lead to production of gastrula, and then organogenesis, which lead to the synthesis of various organs. So the environment and genetic factors play a crucial roles in this development. So reproductive strategies. So the different species exhibit various reproductive strategies for survival. These strategies include R strategy. So R strategy focuses mostly on high offspring numbers, like in bacteria. You can have one bacteria to develop into thousands within 2 minutes or within 10 minutes. So it means that they have high generation time, low generation time. Within a short period of time, a lot of offsprings will be generated. And then in the case of case strategy, it's not actually about the number of the offspring, but rather the quality. So this strategy are influenced by environmental conditions and evolutionary pressures. So you see, ladies and gentlemen, for the R strategies, it associated with just to reduce the number of organisms within short possible time. So for the case strategy, like in humans, we are after the quality, not about the number of the child. So hormonal controls. Hormones regulate reproduction or reproductive process in both males and females. And these key hormones include estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So estrogen and progesterone are the major key enzymes in females, while testosterone is the major enzymes in men. Although estrogen and testosterone are produced both in men and women, or both in males and females, but the concentration matters. So in men, the concentration of testosterone is higher than the estrogen. That is where they are male. And for the female, their estrogen concentration is very high than the testosterone, and that is why they are females. But if the concentration remains the same, that is when you are going to have bisexual humans. So these hormones influence these reproductive cycles, mating behaviors, and offspring development. So these hormones are responsible for all the sexual character. And of course, very importantly, ladies and gentlemen, hypothalamus is one of the major part of the brain that control the release of some of these hormones. So hypothalamus will release a hormones called gonadotropin releasing hormones which activate anterior pituitary gland, which lead to generation of luteinizing hormones and follicle stimulating hormones. So the luteinizing hormones in testes will now activate the testes to release testosterone by the interstitial cells, while the follicle stimulating hormones will now activate testes. So then we have androgen binding protein. So the role of androgen binding protein enhances the spermatogenic cells, that is ability to bind to testosterone stimulating spermatogenesis. So spermatogenesis is very important, the process that involves the synthesis or production of sperm. And for you to produce sperm, you need this androgen binding protein, which is a receptor required for testosterone to bind. So what are the reproductive health? Reproductive health encompasses the physical, mental, and social well-being related to reproduction. So the physical, mental, and social well-being is associated with the reproductive health. So access to education and healthcare is vital for reproductive health. So it's not that because you just want to do or you don't want to do sexual intercourse, you just go into it. No. So you have to be physically, mentally, and socially oriented in relation to the reproduction. So that is why you need education and health care, especially in the reproductive health. So issues such as infertility, sexually transmitted infections, and reproductive rights are important topics in reproductive health. And I think we'll also get time to discuss about reproductive health. It is very, very important. It's not that because you want to give child, you just go and give child. No, it's very important to get the education associated with reproductive health. So what are the required in reproductive health care that you need to know? Birth control is very important. Pregnancy options counseling is also important. Fertility services is also important. Abortion in certain circumstances is also important. Pregnancy support is also important. Emergency contraceptives is also important. Menopause care. So all these things, they are associated with reproductive health, and we are going to look at them one after the other. So then in conclusion and future of reproduction. So understanding reproduction is essential for biology, medicine, and ecology. Advances in reproductive technologies continue to impact society and health. So future research might unveil new insight into reproductive processes and their applications. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Please, if this is the first time you are coming to my YouTube channel, please subscribe and join the YouTube community. See you next in my next video.